everybody. Welcome to the Hard Truth Inside the Football Industry podcast this week with me, Philip Ideson, and Darragh MacAnthony, El Presidente, co-owner of Peterborough United. So we've got lots to talk about this week. We got lots of questions in. You were on TV. You finally had a game of football. Let's talk about that first. You got a draw, and what I see, an interesting performance from the official, but I don't want to get you into too much trouble by getting you to talk about that too much.
Yeah, I'm on a suspended like 20 grand fine from like 5 years ago, so I don't know if there's like a statute of limitations on the fine, but yeah, I mean, if I said how I really feel, I'd probably get banned. You know what I mean? So okay. Yeah, it was good to be on TV. It was good to see the players back. It was good to see football. To be fair, 25 days out, we're playing the league leaders. They've played a lot of football. They're I'm not going to say they're fresh, but football-wise, they're not rusty.
They got the momentum.
Yeah, they got momentum. They've played a lot of teams that have been under strength. They've battered a lot of teams. So, look, fortune favours the brave. They were lucky to play those games. We were brilliant for the first half. We controlled the game. I wouldn't say we dominated because we didn't create enough chances. As much as we controlled the game, we were a bit fur coat, no knickers.
Yeah, possession, but there was nothing really to show.
Yeah, a lot of style, lack of substance, you know what I mean? So we had possession, we got in some good areas, but we didn't have penetration. So, but they were there for the taking and we weren't ruthless enough. So we probably cost ourselves. Then in the second half, and it's really interesting because I do a stats review with a gaff every week. I have my data analytics, and three things I had in my stats thing when I was sending my usual weekly update. One thing was from the 45th to the 60th minute, we're one of the worst teams in the league for coming out after half time. We are. Second thing, Lincoln have got the most corners scored in the league. And the third thing, Lincoln have the most penalties. So we got to be careful of all those things. So what happens in the 47th minute? We come out lackluster. We can see the corner. They score from a corner. And then obviously shortly after they get a penalty. Yeah. So everything I've written
checking all the boxes.
Yeah, so I'm glad people are listening. But no, look, that's not the manager's fault, but we definitely have to do something after half time because we never started well early on in the season games, but now we're starting to do that.
Yeah.
Now we need to focus on what happens after the half time. Look, we've got a lot of games coming up. If our players want to win promotion, they have to be more ruthless. They have to show hunger, desire. They have to improve in set pieces, both boxes, because we're crap in the other box as well. And then the discipline is absolutely lunacy. Nathan Thompson's a very experienced player. As I've said in previous podcasts, I have a lot of time for him. Ridiculous tackle on the halfway line. After that, he's made 3 or 4 challenges where you're like holding, I've got my hands in my mouth. He's going to get sent off. We obviously didn't have young Ronnie on the bench to replace him, as I'm sure he probably would have been. The manager in previous games has always replaced someone who looks like they're kind of on a fine line, yellow to red. And then obviously in the second half, there's a shot right down the throat. If you watch it back, he takes it on the face or he puts his arm up. But he put his arm up. It's a penalty. It's a red card. Game should have been over. We should have been buried. We showed a lot of grit, determination. We made changes. And to be fair, they had better chances, but we were good value for the point against a good side. It's another away point. We've played now in the top 6. I think we've played 4 of the top 6 away from home already, which is good because we're a really good home team. So we've got a lot of those teams to play at home. I'm frustrated because experienced players shouldn't be doing crap like that in a game of that magnitude. And those things cost you. And we can't have those things cost us this season. It's why you bring in experienced players and give them good contracts because you want them to be not like that. So he owes us big time because it's been stop-start in his career. And I would like to see now in the last 25 plus 30 games him be absolutely excellent because he's now missing two of our last 3 league games from suspensions and a red card. And both of the games he's missing is against MK Dons, weirdly enough. How weird is that? So, missed opportunity. Not enough chances for me. You know what I'm like. I like to see their goalkeeper work hard. He didn't work hard because we didn't really put any chances on him. But you know what? All in all, if you'd asked me before and with the 25 days of not playing, okay, you're going to go get a point. It's going to be a 50-50 game. You're going to dig in 10 men with 30 minutes to go. I'd have taken that. So we move on. We've got now home games. Everyone forgets, I think we got 3 home games on everyone else. 3 more home games. So if we did a business at home like I know we can, that will propel us up. We need to get our act together away from home. There was a period we won 5-6 away games on the spin. And then since then, I think we've lost 5 and 6 away from home. So right now we're utter shite away from home. We need to arrest it. If you want to win promotion, you've got to be good away from home.
Who have you got coming up then?
I think we got Portsmouth tomorrow night, the Cup. And then we got MK Dons on Saturday, followed by Ipswich. So we're playing all the teams. Look, we're going to be playing a lot of good teams.
Yeah. You got to play them sometime, I
We
guess.
got to play them sometime. We got to get up for these games, and we got to go on a run, and we've got to put a run of wins together, because this league's not going anywhere. Bar Lincoln playing all the extra games and getting a bit of a head start on everyone. If you look at the results again, Ipswich lost again at the weekend. Crewe drew from being 3-0 up. I think Sunderland and Hull drew. We were fifth before we had our break, and we've come back and we're like sixth after 25 days. So our players need to wake up and smell the coffee and sense and sniff the opportunity that if there's ever a time to win this league or win promotion from this league, this is a golden opportunity for them.
Now you have 25 days off. Where do you put all those fixtures? How do you figure out what the calendar looks like as you're getting towards the end of the season? Is that something you work with the opposition, or does the league kind of set it for you?
Liz, our football secretary, works that out, and we contact the league and say, look, we've got these slots, can we do it here? The other teams might say no, but then the league might intervene and say, sorry, you got to play it in that slot. So I think we've already put in the 3 or 4 fixtures we missed. So we're pretty much playing Saturday, Tuesday till the end of the season. Now, if we win in the cup tomorrow night and go further, that's even going to then further exasperate the fixture.
Yeah, there'll be more dates that get taken out of the calendar.
You know what, Phil? I'm okay with that, and I'm sick of people moaning about too many fixtures, or people like Sam Allardyce was asking for another circuit break again the other day. At the end of the day, it's a privilege for footballers to be able to leave their house, work, and play sport. And you know what? To play every 2-3 days, so what? Get on with it.
Yeah, as far as a supporter, I want them to play every day. Go to a 162 game baseball season where you're playing every day, and some days you're playing twice.
Yeah, that's the irony. My dad loves baseball. I've never really watched it, but they play like 200 games a year. It's fucking madness. They're playing every like 36 hours. So, I know the physical exertion isn't the same as in our game, but the idea that a load of super athletes can't play 3 games a week for the next 12, 13, 14 weeks is a load of bollocks. So, get out there and do the business, because there's people in the NHS probably working triple shifts at the moment because of what's going on. There are people working in supermarkets, the front lines, where, it does make me at times chuckle when I see people going on about, the danger, the this, the that, whatever. But they're okay going to the supermarket, and you see a lot of older people who work behind the tills and the counters going to work every day. And they're putting their own lives in their hands. They're taking the percentage chance that everyone else has to take. So stop fucking belly aching and get on with it.
I want to talk about Accrington. So Accrington are 6th with 2 in hand as well after they won at Charlton, I think, on Friday night. I think they're exceeding an awful lot of expectations. You always kind of expect Accrington to be mid-table, maybe a little lower, struggling, but they're really doing fantastic this season. I just wonder if you had any thoughts on how they're doing it on what is undoubtedly like a pretty low budget.
I don't expect them struggling. Coleman's a real good fit for them. They came up to League One. I lost the bet with all my partners. I bet they'd finish top 10 their first year, because I knew that they have a good team spirit. They have that us against them mentality. They get a lot of loans in. They develop players like that, and they sign some of them and do them. So they're doing well. I'm not surprised. There was no shock for me seeing them beat Charlton. The one thing I know about Accrington Stanley is that they will outrun you. And I said this to my manager, their goal scorer scored 2 goals the other night. And the first thing he said after the game was, we run more kilometres than anyone else.
Yeah.
And that stuck with me. And we've always said that to our players. We showed our players stats from last year that if we ran it was X amount per game on average, we had a 92% chance of winning. Drop down below X amount per game, we had a 48% chance of losing. So the fundamentals were there. The harder you work, the better results you get. And that's kind of normal in all facets of life. So that's not rocket science, but they're built on hard work and grit. Now, I don't know the size of their squad. I don't know if they have to play 30 games in 4 months, if that hard work can stand up. But it wouldn't surprise me if it did. There's a lot of teams going to be thereabouts. And League One's no more that league where you think, the Wickhams and the Ackies of the world are like small teams and they're near the bottom. Burton blew the roof off that. Yeovil blew the roof off that a couple of years before by going up to the Championship. Then you had Burton who went up. You've had Wickham who've gone up. You got Accrington Stanley doing really well. It's that league now where a well-run football club has a chance. So I'm not shocked by it. Good luck to them.
And so we had the FA Cup this week as well. Your nemesis at Chorley doing one on the Derby, although it being the Derby under 18s and under 23s.
Any old chance for the Adele song to get played afterwards?
And then Crawley beating the Leeds yesterday. Yesterday's we're recording this. We're recording on Monday.
Fair play to Chorley. It's good for them. They need the money, so they're going to get the prize money. People were calling for the FA Cup to be called off, and I was like, hang on, there's a lot of lower league clubs in there. Marine made 300 grand out of selling online tickets.
Fantastic was that, wasn't it?
Yeah, brilliant. Crawley, I'm not surprised what they did to Leeds. Crawley, I've watched them a few times on the scouting system. They're very well put together. Don't be surprised if we get promoted. So that didn't shock me because I knew Leeds would huff and puff, and if they didn't score and break them down, there was always a chance Crawley could have a go against them. Look, Leeds have got bigger fish to fry as regards to staying in the Premier League and having a good season there.
Do you think the FA Cup is becoming even less important, or this is just an anomaly this year?
It's an anomaly because, look, there's always shocks like Bradford, Chelsea years ago. I said that there to give you a bit of a twinge, but
we're still dreaming about that day.
Sure. So, there's always the odd shock, but you definitely this year, the anomaly is that because of COVID and the Derby situation, and you're going to have look, we lost to Chorley, but our players fucking didn't give a shit, obviously, on the night. To lose to a team like Chorley the way they did at our places, our players didn't put the shift in. They took that for granted and they got what they deserved. So that can happen as well. Chelsea did the same against Bradford years ago and they got tanked. So if you as a player drop your standard by 30, 40%, I don't give a fuck if you're playing part-timers, they're going to beat you. So that's normal in any facet of life. Again, like I say in business, when we talk about our business podcast, if you don't put the shift in, if you don't work just as hard, you're not going to get the same results if you're used to winning. So I love the FA Cup. I'm glad these teams are doing well. I hope they get the prize money is even less this year. That's the only gutter. Otherwise, they would have made a lot more money. So good for them, and hopefully Chorley can have another go in the next round, and we can hear Adele again.
I mean, it's I don't want to say life-changing money for them, but it sets them up for years.
Phil, Marine 300 grand is life-changing where they are. So they were talking about years and years. I'm not sure it's years and years, but with COVID going on and the season looking like it's going to get cancelled down there again, I mean, that is like the FA Cup saves some football clubs. So fair play to the FA Cup.
Yeah. I just saw the Scottish leagues were cancelled again today below the Championship. Scottish League 1, League 2. And I imagine the fact that we're now doing testing twice a week is kind of protecting the Football League against that somewhat.
Yeah, we did a lot of our instant tests there today. We got the all clear. I'm gutted for young Ronnie, and this is what drives me mad. He apparently got COVID in his parents' house over Christmas. He obviously then isolated, and then he tested negative. So he was coming back to Peterborough to train. He went and stayed with his landlady. He's had COVID. His landlady comes down with it, and per the rules, he has to isolate again for another 10 days. But he's already had COVID.
Mm-hmm. And only not so long ago.
Right, and before all the COVID fucking, lunatics start coming at me and saying, it's dangerous and he can get it again. There's been, 100 million cases of COVID and I think 5 repeat cases which haven't been proven yet. There's no scientific study. So if he's had COVID already, why would you need to isolate again? You got the antibodies in your system from 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's not like it was in March he got it.
The statistical odds of him getting COVID again shown on already. The data is like, you're talking about 0.111%, if that. So again, the rules and everything else, it's like we've had 5 players now with COVID. If they're in a couple of weeks' time or a couple of months' time next to somebody who got it, are we going to lose them even though they've had COVID? At what point does the government and people come out and go, hang on, if you've had COVID and you can prove you've had COVID from whatever else, you are immune from getting COVID pretty much statistically, so you don't have to look.
And you test negative.
And because we've lost a player, the kid hasn't trained for 5 weeks, and now out of bad luck, he's now got to fucking isolate again. So again, it just makes no sense to me. But again, we're run by scientists and fucking lockdown lovers.
Well, at least the PFA can now claim to be the saviours.
Brilliant,
given that they're paying.
Brilliant. Welcome to the party. It's never too late to get involved. Always say that. They've come in with a 98-minute equaliser. Well done to them. And I gave them credit because I've slaughtered them this year a few times. And I got to give them credit because they've stood up and they're paying for the testing. And that's the right thing to do. And we all now, I think, use instant tests, which are 15-minute tests. We test on Monday and a Thursday. So we got the clean bill of health today from all the staff, all the players for tomorrow night. And then we go again on Thursday. So well done to the PFA. And that's a really positive step.
Now, do you think that there's any, or do you think maybe if there's any new cadence if somebody does test positive now that all the testing is happening? So, before it was, oh crap, we got to cancel the game and postpone it. Now we're testing so regularly, we know we can isolate that player and we can continue as normal.
There's still no real guidance about, if you have 5 players, do you shut down? If you have an outbreak per se, I don't know. Do you know what I mean? So again, it would be nice maybe to have the guidance, but no, as of right now, Philip, nothing.
So I want to ask you how the window's going. Any movement or looking like movement in the window so far for you guys?
Yes, I had my old pal Gary Neville on to me the other day. He was messaging me. I sat there watching TV, playing a bit of Championship Manager as I do because I'm locked in.
Mm-hmm.
And he was messaging me about we've got a few players available for loan
Yeah.
or available for transfer. So I was having a bit of a backwards and forwards with him, laughing with him. Who else we got? Yeah, we're looking at getting some younger players out on loan. There's a couple of players who aren't getting enough game time. They could probably move on. If they move on and we do deals, we might bring in. There's no room at the inn until we move out because that's the reality of the salary cap. People are saying to me, are we signing anyone? There's no big desperation to sign anyone. We've touched wood. We've got everyone fit in the squad, which means we've got strikers, midfielders, wingers, wing backs, defenders. We're okay. And there's no, do you want to go out and get another 3 players in January? No, I don't. We put a squad together in the summer we believe could win promotion. We still have the same squad. Everyone will ask about Dembele. Unless somebody comes in and bids the right money, he won't go anywhere. If he goes, we'll replace. If he doesn't go, we get on with things. We've also got a dearth of youngsters underneath. We had Ricky J. Jones make his first appearance on Saturday. Phenomenal little cameo. He frightened the fucking life out of Lincoln defenders because he just leaves you for dead when he gets in behind. So if it wasn't for the referee and a couple of whistles or whatever else, he would have been on goal. But it was. You know what? Talking about referees and officiating, all I ever want is consistency. And our player got sent off for handling in the box, and it was a penalty. And the only thing I'll say negatively about, say, any bad decision on Saturday was we had a free kick on the edge of the box. They had a wall. One of their players, because the sun was in his eyes, had his arm up here. That same player was on a yellow card.
Yeah.
Johnson Clark-Harris took the shot. Guess where the ball hit? Right there.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to put your arms up on a wall. Same player in the referee is 6 yards from it. If you watch back on Sky cameras, and basically gave nothing. So if you're going to do that for Lincoln, you do it for us, because at that stage in the 80-odd minute, we win. We're 10 men each. We move on. So that cost us. And if the assessors who assessed that referee watch that game back, well, let's see what they think.
You can't say it, but I can. I saw the sending off, and I didn't see the challenges that Nathan Thompson put in when he was on a yellow, so I can't say that he wasn't on a fine line or not. But it wasn't it was borderline penalty. It certainly wasn't another yellow card, because it was one of those challenges where you throw yourself at the ball feet first, and it just went past him, and it just hit his hand as he was in front of his face on the way.
So if you're going to do that, do it with the player in their box who did the same.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well is, one of their players was booked early on in the game. We counted. He made 19 fouls after that and wasn't yellow carded again.
Mm-hmm.
So again, it's like, if you're going to referee, be consistent. That's all you ask for. I would never accuse a referee of being biased. In the heat of the moment, we want to moan about it. We didn't not win the game because of the referee, or draw the game. That's on us. You have 90 minutes to put things right, but just make it fair, and that's all you'll ever ask. And that's where I get frustrated when you watch games like that and games on TV. We need our best out there refereeing for TV games.
Yeah, because it just reflects on the quality of the league, and you want as good a game as possible when it's on TV.
Of course it does. Simple as. And that's it.
We've never really talked about this before, but where are you on VAR?
I love it. I'm a VAR fan. Yeah, because I've seen things happen since I've owned Peterborough that's cost us big. That would have been reversed with VAR. So I'm absolutely fine with it. I think it takes too long. Thought early on this season with all the handballs was too much. They're making adjustments. It was never going to be perfect. It was going to take time. But I think when you look at things over the years that have happened, like Lampard's goal against Germany in the World Cup, the 10 yards over the line, things like that, things that have cost us in big games, you go, I'm a proponent of it. I'm fine for it. As long as it's handled properly, as long as it's quick and efficient. So I only see it as a positive thing. I know all the old romantics think it's like kills the game and all of that, but that's a load of bollocks.
Yeah, I think it depends on how much do you use it. If you're using it for an offside, which is based on, the wind's blowing someone's shirt in a certain direction versus, maybe there's a tolerance of a couple of yards or something. So it gets the obviously wrong decisions. I think that's where it's probably getting a bad rep at the moment.
Yes, 100%. But for red cards, for reversing red cards, for proper penalties, for balls over the line, for, things like that. I think excellent. The offside's taken it a bit too far with the armpit and the line up and all of that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? So we've always said that an offside, you're meant to favour the attacker if there's a doubt.
Mm-hmm.
But I am a believer in VAR, and I think, it needs to be honed and improved, and it will. Within the next couple of years, there'll be no more moans about it. It will be down to a T, perfect.
Now, I want to go back and actually ask a follow-up question on transfer window that I had. That everybody who their team wants some players, they say, yeah, we're going to do some strengthening in the transfer window, and then there's this anticipation or even expectation that, okay, January the 1st or January the 2nd, whatever that day is, transfer window wide open, let's get the deals done. And then you're a week in, and then you're 2 weeks in, and you're 3 weeks in, and you haven't really done any deals. And then it's suddenly a flurry at the end where it seems like everyone's panicking. Is that just kind of the inherent nature of what goes on to get deals done in the transfer window? Or, I mean, it seems like from the outside, it looks, well, are you not prepared? You didn't know that transfer window wasn't going to happen. But I'm sure the reality is very different behind the scenes.
It depends on the club's circumstances. We've always tried to get deals done early. Like last January, we brought players in early in the window. Sometimes I'm talking to clubs in December because I'd like to get a player in training with us during the end of December to get acclimatized with his teammates. I've always been a proponent of do your business early to get people settled in. Other clubs like Accrington and Stanley will go out and sign 20 players in the last 2 weeks, and it works for them. So I can't criticize their way, and I can't criticize my way. It's what works for you and what you believe in. A lot of people will also say, well, look, we have to shift things out to get people in. So it could be a monetary thing or a budget issue, The other one is you'll have also a lot of clubs in League One and League Two will be looking for Premier League players. And the Premier League clubs will be like, well, we're not putting them out till the end of the January window. And then it might be, well, you want a certain player, but a club still wants silly money. Maybe in the last 7 days, they'll want less.
Yeah.
Or maybe it goes the other way and they actually want more. Because of the pandemic and everything going on, it's really going to be a really bizarre window with very lack of activity, like last summer. Yes, you had business done, but it was probably less than before, barring the Premier League. But like I said to you there, Phil, it depends on each club. The other thing is you could get to the end of January and you could lose a key player. And you could have a long-term injury. So suddenly, I've got a slot open up. I've got to go out and I've got to fit in, But what you have in preparation is you have, I call it a 4-man list. And we have it here with my data analysis and statistics system where we have 4 players for every position.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're a man down, let's say Huddersfield recall Reece Brown. So suddenly we need a central midfielder. So I will straight away go to page 16 in my book here and go, we've got 4 here that we've been for 5 months, we've been looking at and going, that's the replacement for if we lose Reece Brown.
You're not scrambling around thinking, crap, we've got a hole now. We got 3 days to fill it.
100% not. Just like I know, like with Dembele's replacements, that me and Barry have already been having conversations with clubs about what would you want. We've had conversations with agents like, would your player come to us?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's a key part of it where you need to do a bit of pre-work because there's no point in they agreeing to deal with a club and say the player doesn't want to come or the agent's an asshole or all of that kind of thing. So it just depends. You know what I mean? And as I've said before, there are a lot of asshole agents out there.
I want to talk a little bit about Burnley. So they've just been bought for, I think, 150 million was the number. The Athletic reported that 15 million came from the new owner. 55 million was actually used based on Burnley's cash in hand, and the rest came from a company that was related to Michael Dell. I'm assuming it was a loan. I just wonder if you could explain a little bit of the process of using the cash of the club that you're buying to essentially fund the deal, and any thoughts that you have on that.
So basically, it's very similar to like in the property business. It's called a hard money loan. It's where basically you're paying 10, 12 points, I think, in interest. Because normally if you buy a house, you pay 2-3%, whatever the interest rate is or whatever. But in America, where I do, sometimes my brother-in-law does a lot of flips. He buys homes, he refurbs them, whatever. And he does what's called hard money loans, where there are these lenders with funds of money for investors, and they need to get returns of like 10, 20% per annum for the investors. So he'll go to those lenders, and the lenders will give him 100 grand to buy that home, but he has to pay back 115 in 3 months. So it's a hard money loan. So basically what they've done is the Dell fund that's been called is basically a pool of money that's been raised, the fund, a lot of investors' money, Dell's personal money or whatever else, he's a billionaire. And what he wants from that fund every year is he wants to make 10, 15% on his money. That's normal. A lot of people, I've invested in funds, everyone has. My partners are in the fund business. So effectively, Sunderland, I think, borrowed from that fund a few months ago. They took 10 million. I think there's about 4 other clubs that have done the same. It's not against the law. I understand Kieran Maguire, the price of football. He does a good thing. He writes about whatever else, and he likes to go into the details of deals. Whenever we factor a player transfer, he posts it on his Twitter feed and whatever else. And there's no big revelation here. At the end of the day, we're in a pandemic. Not everyone has 150 million sat in a bank account. Now, the concern for Burnley would be if they're not in the Premier League and those loans become payable, as long as you can service the percentage points every year, you're fine. But the minute you get to the stage where you can't and they can take the club back or they can reclaim the club, that becomes a problem. Burnley's biggest issue for me is not the hard money loan, not the new owners. It's Sean Dyche. Because if you lose him, you're in trouble.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, he's the one that's holding it all together.
Why were those owners, before I signed off and all of that, I would have been like, listen, are you signing a new 5-year deal? Because that's like key to everything. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, we said, like, no one person can be more important than anything else. But kind of in that case, the job he's done at Burnley, he is.
Mhm.
Now, the way they've structured the deal is fine. They've used other people's money and some of their own money to do it. We're in a pandemic, like I said, no one's going to have that kind of cash just sat in their bank unless they're a sheikh or a Russian oligarch. So I don't see a big issue with it. I don't know the history behind the guys who've got involved. I don't know what their end goal is. Of course, everyone wants to be skeptical because of some of the shysters we've had in football in the last few years, but I don't think we should tar everyone with the same brush coming in and buying clubs. So I think there has to be a benefit of the doubt given to some owners who come in. The Premier League couldn't turn it down because they've obviously seen due diligence on it all and it matches up with their fit proper person test. So look, if I was out of Peterborough and I was buying another club, I'd probably do the same. I used all my cash for Peterborough. And probably one of the naive things, and we'll talk about that in the business podcast, hardtruthbusiness.com, guys, if you're interested in signing up.
Yep.
That a lot of things I did when I was younger, 29, 30, I bought houses for cash. I bought a football club for cash. I probably could have made a lot more money if I'd used finance instead. Where basically instead of paying 5 million in cash for something, I'd have paid $1 million, I'd have borrowed 4, I'd have then had 4 spare to invest in something else and multiply my investment.
Got all your assets tied up.
But then again, some would say when 08, 09 came, because I had some assets that I hadn't mortgaged to the hilt, I was in a better position. So you could look at them both sides. But in hindsight, I do wish I had, been a little bit more clever using other people's money as regards to banks, third-party lenders and everything else. And it's out there. And, recent acquisitions I bought homes-wise, I have gone down the route of where I've done 50-50. Mortgage and cash, because the other 50% I've kept back, I've invested to try and make 10-12% on.
Yep.
It then pays off the interest on that, and I'm still making some money. So that's just smart betting, and as you get older and more mature, you learn. More and more football clubs are getting bought like that. I think Sunderland, when it was bought from Ellis Short, I think the 40 or 50 million that was due in Premier League money was used to give back to him for the person to take over. I think other clubs, there's one club in the Championship recently relegated, same thing. They came in, they put down a down payment, but they used some of the Premier League money to pay back the owner. Where it works for the Burnley owners is simple. Not many people are going to walk in tomorrow and pay them 150 million in cash for Burnley. It's not worth 150 million. So, and if they tomorrow went into the coffers and took that 40 million in cash out of the Burnley account and paid themselves dividends and whatever, it's going to cause a lot of fucking uproar. They're entitled to do it. They own the club. But instead of taking that route, pissing off the fans, destroying their legacy, they found these guys who can come in, put a down payment down, they've got some external borrowing, and there's money in the bank that they can borrow against. And that money's been given to the previous owners, and they can walk off with 150 million clear, and their hands are clean. And they got no criticism whatsoever. Because as a Burnley fan, how can you criticise those owners?
Not at all. It's best of both worlds for them. They've been able to do what they could with the football club, and they've profited obviously financially in doing so.
Prudent, very prudent business.
Which is how it's supposed to work.
Correct. And that's, and we'll talk about that in the business pod, hardtruthbusiness.com, a few times coming up. That is making money work for you in a really clever and effective way.
The last question that I want to ask before we go into a break and get some questions from listeners is around politics. And it's around what's going on in the US right now. We've actually had quite a few questions, both on email and on social, to ask us, I think, just because of our, because I know you're in the UK at the moment, but because we're here in the US, kind of in the thick of it, like what the heck is going on? So, yeah, let's see what we make of that. I'd love to know what you're seeing and what you think of everything that's going on right now.
People know out there, you're a Democrat, I'm a Republican. It doesn't mean you love Joe Biden, and it doesn't mean I adore Donald Trump, even though that gets thrown at me all the time. I support my political party. You support your political party. We have different beliefs, but we meet in the middle on lots of things. Lots of things we'll disagree on, which is fine. That's the essence of life, is having different opinions and breaking bread and being able to debate them together. What we saw last week disgusting, indefensible, and you can't defend that bullshit. And sad to see people lose their lives. Fucking lunacy. But as much as last week was horrendous and we lost a police officer, I want the same people who have piled on about last week to be as critical of the BLM and Antifa riots from 5, 6, 7 months ago that were destroying Democrat cities across America. And that was all over the world. That was seen by the media. But lots of media decided not to say anything. Lots of people decided not to say anything. But trust me, it was happening. We lost a black police officer called David Dorn during the big riots and after, obviously, the policeman murdered George Floyd. David Dorn was killed in the riots. And he was a former police person. And nobody talked about him. Because there was the whole BLM thing going on in America. Antifa was going on. No one talked about him. But last week, a police officer was killed. And that's all that's been talked about. Because again, it's get Trump. And Trump's a fucking idiot. Do you know what I mean? Like, since he's lost the election, his behavior, forget about his behavior beforehand, has just been like a child. And anyone can see that. And you don't have to be red or blue to agree with me on that. Do you know what I mean? So I'm so sick of politics, whether you're left or right. I'm fed up with politics. It rules our lives. Am I concerned going forward with the tech censorship? I hate censorship because we live in a democracy and a society in America where freedom of speech is a fundamental right. And to see Amazon and to see Twitter and to see Google do what they've done, and this isn't just about last week. You know that. I know that. This is about we're getting Trump and we're going after every Republican and we're doing what we can to shut down them, their voices, business. You have to have both sides of an argument. Forget about, the horrible acts last week. I put it to you like this earlier. My children are teenagers and I want them to go to college. And I want them to hear both sides of arguments. If you're a liberal, if you're conservative, and I want them by the time they're 2021 to make their own decision. Are they a Democrat? Are they a Republican? Are they Tea Party? Are they independent? Are they, the Green New Deal and all that climate crap? If that's what they're into, great. I'll respect their opinion because they're big enough, old enough. But you know what? They're going to have the next 5, 6 years to learn both sides. And right now with all the censorship going on and with everything going on where they want to talk about last week, but they want to ignore and nullify what happened in the summer with all the riots and things happening across America, my kids are only going to hear one side of the argument. And that's not right. That's fundamentally wrong. And I saw there were some English football journalists on Twitter who were celebrating the fact Trump's account was deleted by Twitter. And I'm like, any journalist who promotes censorship of any form, regardless, whether it's Donald Trump or anyone else, you're an embarrassment to your industry. You're a fucking embarrassment to your industry because there should be no censorship. Do you know what I mean? And now, if somebody is going on and trolling footballers and being racial to footballers and calling them names, and I get it all the time being Irish, I get the old gypsy and da-da-da-da-da all the time, and traveller, that gets thrown at me all the time. Now, yes, people like that should be shut down. But censorship to the point where you're censoring the President of the United States of America, and look, he'll answer for what he did last week and all the things that happened last week, whereby he is a complete pariah and nobody will want to touch him. But to suddenly then come out and want to go after every single person that's ever worked in his administration and Republican media or Republican businesses, this isn't Republican and Democrat. Let's all just agree. No police officer should be attacked. And we saw it last week and we saw it throughout the summer. Police officers all over America were getting killed and attacked in all areas of America. And the media didn't want to talk about it, right? Nobody should be breaking the law. I'm okay with you standing on my front garden and demonstrating that you don't like me. You start breaking the law and smashing my windows, my doors, or whatever else, well, you're going to have to deal with the consequences.
Violence isn't acceptable anywhere.
In any place, there should be no violence. But I respect in America that you have a fundamental right to protest. And that's fine. There's not a problem with me. But to get to this level where we're at now, do you know what I mean? And you got both sides of the parties giving it their usual shite. I'm bored by it. And I'm bored by it because we've had this now in droves for the last 2 years. So now I'm kind of glad Trump didn't win because I want another 4 years of it. Do you know what I mean? Of course, I'm worried about Biden and his policies because they're going to affect me. They're going to affect my life. They're going to affect my kids, my financial status. But there's nothing I can do. We won an election fair and square. That's democracy. That's the way it goes, But we'll get on with that and we'll deal with that down the line. But, I'm sick of it all, Phil. I don't know about you, I just am. I'm sick of wokeism. I'm sick of politics. I'm sick of virtual signaling. I'm fucking sick of it all. I just want to live my life. I want to do things within the law. I want to bring up my children in the right way. I want to give my children both sides of the argument, and then they can decide for themselves when they want to grow up and what they want to do. And that's where I am on it. But bottom line, yeah, I hate violence. Bottom line, if you're going to dig out what happened last week, the disgraceful scenes, you've got to be consistent and dig out what happened 6 months ago. And trust me, it was horrendous 6 months ago. The media weren't covering it. No one in England was really talking about it, but it was fucking awful. And the statistics of over, I think, 35 people died. Businesses were burnt down. Police officers were attacked, murdered, run over by cars, shot in the head. This all happened 6 months ago, people. And if you're in England and your news is CNN, you won't know about that. But it did happen 6 months ago. So give the coverage equally on both things that happened. And that's where I am on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm with you on censorship. That I always also think the same for my kids and for anybody is make the best decision based on all that you know, form your world picture and your worldview or whatever on all the available information. I think that people have to be held accountable for last week.
100%.
I think that if people aren't held accountable for last week, then it just continues to get worse. But I also agree that my hope for Biden is that he is a centrist. He has talked about bringing the country together. I think there'll be fractions of the country on both sides that don't care about that. But I think that he'll at least do everything in his power to have a conversation about what's best for America versus what's best for everybody. Whether he succeeds or fails is another question entirely. I think that he's going to have some work to do against his own party to be able to do that.
Worst thing that happened, the Senate got lost because now he's in trouble where the party's going to put him under pressure with all their crazy things they want to do.
He's got a really interesting balance now in that, on the other hand, this is probably getting too deep for folks who don't know the intricacies of the Senate. You have a guy in West Virginia called Joe Manchin, who is a Democrat senator, but is really Republican in everything but name.
He's key to it all.
Yeah. So, the Senate, I don't expect a lot of things to get done unless they're very centrist. And then we'll see where things are in 2 years.
Yeah. Look, we all want the same. We all want our children to get educated. We want our children to be safe. We all want to live in safe places. We want good healthcare. We all want equality. And we want, events this year, both COVID and non-COVID, to do what happened with George Floyd and everything that came afterwards. We want to have peace. And I think, get to a place where that shit just doesn't happen anymore, including having people murdered, you know what I mean, for having been pulled over in a car. And no matter what color their skin it is. And, until we get that, unfortunately, we're going to live in this society. So the quicker we can get to that, the better for our children. And that's it, guys. That's where we are with politics. Me and Phil, we differ on so many ideologies when it comes to the politics, but we break bread. We're friends. We respect each other. And that's the way it should be. That's the hard truth.
Well, with that, let's take a little break, and then we'll be back in a couple of moments with some questions from listeners. Hi everybody, welcome back to the pod. We've got some listener questions I'm going to go straight into right now, and the first one is from Stephen. And Stephen is asking, if you pay up a player's contract so that you can take them off the wage bill and move them on, is that money that you use to pay the contract up with? Is it actually classed as part of the salary cap, or does it not count as part of the salary cap?
No, it doesn't count. If you do a compensation deal where someone leaves, it comes off the salary cap. Do you know what I mean? So we had a player who left, Jason Naismith, and we cancelled his contract, and he got a contract somewhere else, but we still had to pay him. I think it was 20 grand. Same with George Boyd. We give him like X amount of money. But in fairness to the player, I agreed payments over a couple of years with them to help also a cash flow. And the players were good as gold in that respect. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there's a little bit of give and take. It's the players who want to be paid in full who are unreasonable, where they've got other offers, but they want to sit on their contract. But you've got other offers. Can we come to a deal? No, I'm happy not playing football. They're the ones sometimes that surprise me. And everyone goes, yeah, but they signed a contract that should be, yeah, but I'm not trying to screw their contract. They've got to say they're on $2 grand a week with me, and they got offered $1,500 a week by Bradford, and then I'm trying to meet them on the 500 quid difference to compensate. There should be some sort of a deal that can be done if they want, particularly if it's a player who's got years left in front of them. £500 a week shouldn't be a deterrent and I'm not leaving.
You don't still have to cover that in your salary cap once they're off the books, once they make that payment.
Done. Because don't forget, you can take the player out of the salary cap.
Yeah, if you take them out of your squad.
Correct.
So this may be asking you to give up your secret sauce, so you may not be able to answer this. It's a follow-up from Stephen. How does Darragh value a player? Do you have a set process that you go through to value a player? And the one that I sure you can't answer, what information is it based on?
Yes, and no comment.
There you go. So a question from Alan. Alan says he just listened to episode 35, which was the last episode. We're talking about how close the leagues were, and he wanted to add an opinion that is part of it is because of lack of fans. It's difficult going week in, week out without fans in the ground. But the question that related to that was, how much time is actually spent with players on the mental side of the game?
Not enough. I'm a big believer in helping people with mental health. I was never years ago into shrinks, psychology, all of that kind of stuff. I've always been that old-fashioned guy of, pull your big curl pants up and get on with things. And I've dealt with things that way myself. Maybe it's the way I was brought up, I don't know. But I would never belittle anyone who asks for help or needs help or whatever. And there are players who are terrific players who get caught where they're out of form and they can't get their form back. And they see no end in sight. And they train, they go home, they got four walls, they need help. And, if we were in the championship and budget allowed it, I would hire a shrink. And no disrespect to any psychologist or psychiatrist listening, I'm just saying shrink because that's such an American thing to say, and I mean it respectfully. I would hire a shrink on our wage bill to come in part-time and work with our players a couple of days a week. Mm-hmm. And basically have an office at our training ground where players can make appointments. And even if it wasn't our training ground, they want to go out and have a coffee and speak to people just to get a clarity of mind. What I was really, really good at in my first business was, I'm always been a good motivator, but I've always been very good, particularly with young people, seeing problems and issues and helping them get through those issues and problems and acting as a bit of a wall for them to bounce things off problems. And even now I've got people I help and talk to and whatever else, and I'll do Zoom calls with where I'll let them talk it out and maybe a bit of a shrink myself, and then give them my perspective. And I think sometimes players, instead of having a football manager or a fan or whoever at them or a partner or a wife, somebody can come in and get their mind clear and get them motivated and get them rocking and rolling. Do you know what I mean? Again, an agent friend of mine is actually very, very good, has done it for his own clients and his players. He has someone he works with and they work with the players in off season. And, I've seen the proof in the statistics of a couple of his players who were way out of form like 18 months ago, who've got really good moves recently. And fair play to the agent. Do you know what I mean? He's done a really, really good job at that.
Which it's a good, as well as from a personal level, it's obviously been a good business investment for him to be able to turn around the valuation of those players by helping them in that way.
And you're right. There's two ways to look at it. He's trying to, from the business angle, get his players back, but I also know this agent's very brotherly with his clients.
Right. No, I'm more saying it's like a win-win.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. But we all have a motivation to do something. There's always going to be something in it for us, right? So, I don't believe in complete selflessness. It just doesn't exist. It's not human nature. There's always something in there for you when you're trying to do something and be selfless or whatever else. So whatever it might be, whether you're looking for good karma or you're looking for whatever it might be. So I believe he was looking for, yes, get his players going again, so it helps him. But because he's close to someone, you know what I mean? It's also an element of, I need to help that person. So, but I am a big proponent of it. It's a great question.
And so at a League One, League Two team, is it typically the manager that has to play that role?
I think so. I think sometimes depends on the manager. Are they good with people? Some managers are just great coaches, but they're not good man managers. So it just depends. Some managers could be old school where they don't believe in that. And there will be some of those dinosaurs still out there, which is a problem, for a young player. If the manager found out that they're seeing a shrink or seeing somebody, but some of the top players in the game do it. Look, they say this. Any tool you can use to make you better, you use. Do you know what I mean? As long as it's effective for you. I don't think me sitting talking with someone on a leather couch is effective for me.
Mm-hmm.
But if my kid needed it, they'd get it. If my wife needed it, and why would she? She's with me. She'd get it. Do you know what I mean? So that's the reality. I would never, ever, ever close my mind on anything like that. If it can help someone, help themselves.
And for anyone who's listening, we've got 2 wry smiles as you said that. um, so I got a couple of, I've got one question from James, and I actually have a follow-up. James is a Sheffield Wednesday fan,
Cool.
and says, obviously we've been hit with a points deduction this season, as well as a lot of our players are being paid late or not being paid at all.
Sure.
Is there a reasonable excuse for paying players late or not paying them at all, or is it just bad running of the club? And what impact would that, do you think, have on the players themselves?
Oh yeah, the excuse would be you don't have the money to pay them. So I guess that's the excuse, right? Now, if you're owned by someone mega wealthy, there's no excuse.
Yeah.
Touch wood, I've never paid my players late. If I had to pay them late, I'd sit with them all and tell them and be honest with them and go, guys, I'm brassic, I'm in trouble, I'm trying to do whatever, I need your help, I'm going to be late, I'm going to sell a watch, so I'm going to get you your money a week later, whatever. Just always be honest and transparent with players. They're human beings. So tell them, look, you're going to get your money because the EFL always guarantee players get paid no matter what. So even if you're not going to get it this month, you're going to get your money. And I think it's the not telling them. And if I tell you I'm sending you money and it doesn't arrive, you're pissed off. If I tell you there's a reason I can't send it, okay, you're going to be angry, but you're going to understand. So I don't know. I don't want to judge any owner in a pandemic who's late paying wages. I just think now's not the time to do that.
Yeah, and something that we often miss, I think, is that owners have businesses too, and you don't know how those businesses are going and how badly they're affected.
What's left of them? I mean, if you're owned by somebody who owns 100 restaurants, fuck me, your football club's in trouble. because the reality is their restaurants are in trouble. So if you own somebody who's in vaccine development, your club should be spending fortunes.
Yep, you're buying your way to promotion next year.
Yeah, absolutely. Or owns a testing company or whatever. You know what I mean? So it's all relative, isn't it? If someone owns a supermarket, they've done pretty well during the pandemic. So, but again, a lot of owners in our industry would have been battered, particularly in League One and League Two. I had things I was doing and I had to shut them down. So, you know what I mean? It's like everything else. I took a serious, mullering during the pandemic, then picked myself up off the floor and had to go again. So, that happens to us all. But you know what? There's always someone worse than you out there. And right now, there's a lot of people out there that are worse than me and you, Phil.
My follow-up question was just keeping on the topic of Sheffield Wednesday. They obviously just sacked Tony Pulis after 10 games in charge.
Sure.
I wonder if you've ever had any immediate doubts after signing a manager, thinking, what the hell did I do?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I probably Mark Cooper, because I took him from non-league to the championship and I thought at the time it's too big a move, but went through with it. I was proved right. He's a hell of a manager. But probably after 5 games, I was thinking, shit, what have I got him into? And what have I got myself into? So there's definitely been times, where I've thought that. And look, if you're not going to, Tony Pulis is a very, how can I say this? I can imagine he's not the easiest to work with at the best of times because of his personality. And I've seen him, he's fallen out with the Gillingham owner and had a court battle. He's fallen out with Crystal Palace, who sued him, and he sued them. I think Palace won. He's had that where he's gone, where he's had a few things. So when you have that in you, you know what you're getting. So the Wednesday manager, my criticism of him would be, you knew what you were getting with Tony Pulis. You know his style of football. You know he's combative. You know there could be issues if you sack him. So, hell, that's on you.
Yeah, or you didn't do your due diligence.
No, you did, but you just still made the decision. Yeah. Whoever your advisor is needs to be fucking shot and fired.
The last question we got is from Reese. It's ironic given the fact you were talking about Gary Neville earlier. He asked what your opinion is of Salford and how they've gone about things. And, what's do they have a limit? Do they have a ceiling?
No, there's no glass ceiling for them because of the wealth behind them. I love it. I love what they've done. I know people are like critical and everything else. Oh, they're buying. It's like Championship manager. You know what I mean? You're buying a non-league club. You're building it from nothing. You're building a stadium. The one thing I'll give them the credit for is they've backed up everything they've done. They saved the club. They redeveloped the stadium. They've introduced an academy. And they've given their fans titles and succession promotions. They made themselves an established football league club. They will be in the Championship within the next 6-7 years, maybe sooner. They're owned by a billionaire. Then you've got the class of 92 who then all own their own minority shares in the club. So they're all wealthy. So if they've got a 2-3 million deficit every year, it's probably costing each of them a couple of $100,000, which is like peanuts for them. Yeah. So I think they've got a good thing going on. I think Gary loves owning a club. You watch the class of 92 on Sky. It's really good to watch. It's funny because obviously I'm in the industry. So when I see him doing his meetings, he's talking to agents and everything else. Of course, they've put a target on their backs with agents where they've probably overpaid the last 2 years in wages, but they knew that. And Gary's probably coming to the reality now that he knows that too. He's not daft. He's a multi-millionaire. He's an ex-England international. He's a Man United legend. He earns millions working for Sky. He's a very, very clued up guy. So I love what they've done with Salford, and good luck to them. I've got no problem with that. I know some people pick holes at it, but you could pick holes at Jack Walker and what he did for Blackburn back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
But the fans will always remember him fondly. And if there was a Hall of Fame, he'd be in the Hall of Fame.
I think there's this snobbery about them not being an established football league club.
We've got to get over that crap. All of this tin pot and this, that, and whatever else. You know, I would imagine 20 years ago, Bradford fans in the Premier League were calling Peterborough tin pot.
Yeah.
And probably didn't realise 20 years later, it will be very, very different situation.
Losing in the cup to, I don't know, Doncaster, and you're thinking that we've been, how is that even possible?
Snobbery's got to stop in football because, you know, and what you're going to see more and more in years to come is it's who recruits better, who manages budgets better. And as Accrington and Stanley are showing you this year, and when they beat Charlton comfortably the other night, you know, a club's history is not going to fucking deliver titles and promotions.
It means nothing.
It means nothing now. You know, you're running on fumes if you're running off your history. So Coventry were a big club 10, 12 years ago. And right now, Mark Robbins is probably saying, well, if we survive in the Championship, we'll have done well. If you'd asked a Coventry fan 15 years ago.
And yeah, well, they got relegated with us 20 years ago.
That's what I mean. So football snobbery is such an oxymoron. It's fucking stupid. So people have to get over that. You know, when Peterborough were in the Championship and we were beating big clubs in the Championship, whatever else, we were beating them on merit of football. We weren't beating them on the size of our fan base.
I have one follow-up question about Salford, and it's not just about Salford, but you made a comment there that maybe they're realizing they overspent for a couple of years and it sets them up for some difficulty. How do you change that? You know, because there'll be periods of times when you do maybe go all out and you're not so worried about the spending, and then you got to rein things in. How do you change the perception that people realize they can't come to you and just because you're Salford, you know, add another 1,000 onto a wage, for example?
I'd probably look. I'm an astute guy, and I always say I'm the best deal maker outside the Premier League, which I am. But I've still been taken for a ride in the early years of Peterborough a couple of times on deals because they knew Peterborough was owned by this. You know, they used to say back then, the Ram of Abramovich, the Irish Abramovich, you know, with Peterborough, because I was on TV, I was giving it the big one, we were buying players. So there was probably a couple of free transfers where I overpaid in wages. And I did. And I know I did because I ended up 2 of the players I was paying off for 3 years because they were on stupid contracts. So
I heard.
I blame Barry Fry, but I love Baz. But, you know, he was probably caught up in it as well. I've got this multi-millionaire owner. I can sign that fucking contract. There it is. 10 years.
And I've not been able to spend a penny for the last
Yeah. So now it's like I'm a kid in a sweet shop. So how do you change it? You change the perception by being shrewd and saying no. Sometimes saying no is better than saying yes. So if that makes sense. And that's where it's like, there's a deal you can afford to do, and you know this could be the one thing you need for your club, but it's like, no, I've got to put a flag in the sand and go, no. Because I've made these decisions before. I'm paying players thousands of pounds per week in League Two. There's a pandemic that gives you a chance as well to adjust and bring things down. Gary's a clever guy. The one thing about him would be, and the people around him, is they might have done it for a year, but they won't do it for your second year or third year. And they learn as they go. And I know he's got his recruitment team in there, but he'd be as good as his recruitment team. He's not daft. He would know what he's doing. So yeah, so that's where you can change the perception. You can let agents know that, you know, the open season for easy paydays is over. You know, and that's what you do. Simple as that.
All right. Well, that's a wrap for this week. I want to thank everybody for listening in to us once again.
Just a quick update in the business podcast. So far we've had 300 people sign up for the business podcast that we're going to launch. If you haven't heard about it before, go to hardtruthbusiness.com, fill in your details, sign up there. We're going to probably limit this at around 1,000 people. So it is going to run out of space by the time we launch. So if you want to sign up, this is going to be a podcast on life, on business, on helping you get a better job, on helping you get a promotion, on possibly helping you turn your life around financially, or you're thinking about starting a business. It's going to be about that. It's going to be about my life and business, the things I've gone through. A lot more detail than we discuss here in the football podcast. It's probably going to cost you 10, 15 quid a month to get access to it. It could be a little bit more, could be less. So if you are interested and that's money that you feel is well invested, you know, get on to hardtruthbusiness.com and fill in your details and do it now.
Yep. So for now, you're going to go to a form, just your name and an email address, so we can keep in touch with you as we come up to the launch. be a great way for us to be able to communicate. So that's hardtruthbusiness.com. All right. Well, we'll be back again with the pod next Wednesday, January the 20th. And as always, if you appreciate the show, we'd love for you just to rate and review on iTunes. That just helps us keep it relevant and keep us finding new people. So appreciate everything.
All the best, guys.
Take care.